You know what I say? Nighttime is the best time for more coffee. Oh. This is COFOH Live Undead. I am your host, Daniel Crosier, and I am joined by the amazing troupe of the Marvelous Critters Veterinary Medicine. Oh!
Do I have something on my face?
Alanna, Oliver, Nolan, how are you?
Great.
Doing good. Excited to be here.
Excellent.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thanks for coming on, guys. Hopefully you're caffeinated up and can. You trust me. You don't want to be caffeinated up, in the evening. That's not good, right?
I mean, we're veterinary students. We usually are.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
we don't sleep.
Late hours.
Caffeine's our drug of choice for sure.
Excellent. Then I am in good company. Wow. Thanks for coming on the show and talking with me. I can't wait to dive into this. Talking about anatomy, physiology of mythical animals, monsters, kaiju, whatever. But if you could, real quick, kind of go round table. Talk a little bit about your backgrounds and everything. Oliver, can I start with you?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Oliver. I'm a third-year veterinary student. I got involved with this club during my first year with Nolan, like deep in the heart of COVID when we couldn't see each other and all of our classes were online. Nolan posed this idea of, hey, what if we started a club that just brought all of these genres and fandoms together in light of veterinary medicine? And we talked about horror creatures and fantasy creatures. And just it started as a really small, let's watch movies and talk about them. And then somehow it's turned into this, where we've been paneling on some pretty big stages and having an amazing time making veterinary medicine accessible and fun to a lot of people.
Oh, cool. Man, that sounds awesome. Alanna, can you talk about your experience and your background?
Yeah, so I'm Alanna Gudmunson. I was born and raised in Cheyenne, Wyoming, so kind of like small state, small town type of deal. And then I started vet school here in Fort Collins, and I also got involved with the club during my first year. It was October of my first semester, kind of like heading into where I was starting to be worried about finals and thinking about that, and just really like, I need to go out and do something fun. I saw that Marvelous Critters was having a horror movie night, and I love horror movies. So I went as a freshman, not really knowing what I was getting myself into. We watched a really cool movie, and then afterwards we just dived into the anatomy and physiology, describing how the creature functioned and how it worked. And even though I was only a first year without even a full semester's experience or knowledge under my belt, I was rather surprised at how well I was able to use the anatomy and physiology that I had already learned, because I was taking anatomy and phys at the time, to really participate and contribute to the discussion. It was really, really neat. And I've been full-heartedly committed to the club ever since. That day I was recruited for excursions coordinator, and so I became the club's excursions coordinator. And afterwards we spent probably an hour in the parking lot just talking about ideas of what we can do with the club.
Oh my God, that sounds awesome. Nolan, how about you, sir?
So my background is I'm a third-year veterinary student as well. Prior to that, I was a wildlife guide, cryptozoologist, and helped out with anthropology projects. I've basically a lot of people call me the Renaissance guy. As Oliver and I founded the club with our friend Fiona when we first started, and this was always on my idea of we've always talked about mythological creatures. Everyone wants to know more. Everyone wants to figure it out. But we decided we should use our knowledge. We are at scientific training. We could use our scientific training to analyze these guys. And let's take that mythology and put it into real life and figure out how it works. So.
Nice. That's really cool. Just a second before we go into talking about some of the panels and a recent dinosaur dig. For everybody that's tuning in, watching, feel free to post in the comments what monsters or creatures or kaiju or beasties that you want these guys to talk about, as far as how anatomy works, physiology. And, obviously with we were talking about kaijus before we went live, the likelihood, if at all, right? Or in that case, the unlikelihood of anything that big existing. But if you could, talk about some of the panels that you've conducted and your approach to that involving large group chats.
So for our panels, we've paneled at Denver's Fan Expo, we paneled at LeakyCon, and we've paneled at Fort Collins convention, Comic-Con convention as well. And for each of those, we did 2 panels. One was where we made cases in advance, and then we presented the cases and worked through them with the audience. And then the other panel was our anatomy and physiology based panel, where we took creatures and discussed the anatomy and physiology and explained how they could or potentially could not function in the world that we live in today.
Yeah. The goals of all our panels are to try to bring veterinary knowledge and kind of show off, not show off, but show how veterinary knowledge can be utilized. We're just doing this for the ego boost. But to show how veterinarians think, how we approach problems, and also how veterinary knowledge can be utilized for fiction and for fantasy. One of the many things that we talk about is with our cases, we have people just talk through them with us. Oliver wrote a couple of amazing cases for some of our mini panels. And we just kind of use these cases. We create them ahead of time, and we talk to people this is something you might see in your own pets, but here it is in, I don't know. Somebody give me an example of one of the craziest ones we did.
Yeah.
We had some interesting discussions. Growlithe, and then a werewolf, although I don't think we've actually presented that one at a panel yet.
I don't think we've truly presented the werewolf one at a panel yet.
Interesting. You think that would be, well, for a horror crowd, that certainly would be the go-to.
Oh, there's so many that we've done. One of my personal favorites that we did, and this was at our Denver Fan Expo. Actually, no, I'm going to go. My personal favorite is we did a mosasaur, which if you don't know what a mosasaur is, it's a large marine lizard. Yep. And we did a dental disease on it. And did a whole thing on how difficult dental procedures would be underwater.
We only sacrificed 2 technicians and 1 doctor in the process of getting the teeth clean.
They were worthy sacrifices, right? Because now that creature's grill is minty clean.
Indeed. But yeah, so we do that kind of informative thing. And then we also do these anatomy and physiology panels, and I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to pass it on to somebody else to talk about those.
Those have been really fun. I think all of our favorite parts of those is like the audience interaction and the really like niche but amazing discussions that come out of it. Like people just think of just the coolest creatures that we would have never even thought to talk about, and those just spur, I don't know, amazing discussions that. And also the audience has lots of ideas too, like building off of what we've said that like connects the dots on things. And it's just, I don't know, it's such a cool energy, and like being in those rooms is my favorite thing.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Alanna, can you talk a little bit on like some of your takeaways on those group interactions, and also what was the most surprising pitch you guys ever got?
Ooh, surprising pitch. That's a rough one. We've just had so many absolutely incredible ones. It's hard for me to like pull one that stood out over all of the other ones off like on the spot. I know we had some in our LeakyCon was our most recent one. And I know we had a lot of really cool discussions about like guys, the ones that can like disappear and are invisible and turn invisible and things like that. And they're the ones that can see the future. We had some really cool discussions about those. And then we also had some really neat discussions about werewolves during our horror panel that we had, because we did anatomy and physiology panel on horror creatures at Denver's Fan Expo. Nice. And ultimately the audience threw out werewolves, and it kind of actually took, at least it took me a little bit by surprise, because after we had been asked to discuss how it happened, I realized that I didn't really see how a werewolf could actually make those transitions.
Right.
And that was kind of interesting to have such a popular creature and well-known creature actually kind of like throw us off a little bit.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Rose Snap here just chimed in. LeakyCon panels were fantastic. So you guys have some fans out there. And you were also mentioning excellent. You were also mentioning before we went live a recent dinosaur dig. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so of course we can't reveal the location. It's secret. But I will say that it is somewhere in Wyoming. And we brought some of our club members, not only our panelists, but also just some of our general club members, to the dig site for a weekend. And we were there overnight, and we got to see the process of discovering the fossils, excavating the fossils, how they encase them to protect them, and also how they like flip them over to preserve them, and things like that, to actually remove them from the earth without damaging them or losing them or shattering into pieces. Fortunately, while we were there, we were successful with everything, which is fantastic. We also found, I should have grabbed it, but we also
You should have grabbed it. That would have been really fun to show on the camera.
We found a small fossil that has evidence of predation. We think it's teeth marks. We're not quite sure. We still have some analyzing and stuff to do on it. I actually have it upstairs. I didn't grab it in advance. So it was an absolutely incredible experience. We ended up getting up in the middle of the night to take star pictures, which was a lot of fun. It was just it was so nice, and it was educational too, because that stuff that I never really knew about the process, and to be a part of it was incredible, and to touch something that is older than anything else on this earth, and for us to be the first ones to see it in literally millions of years is really humbling.
You see, that part's true, but it's not the oldest. Outside of that dig site, there's a spot that has like nearly 1 billion old fossils that are just bacteria fossils. You get the chance. I mean, you have to have a microscope to look at them, but they're really cool, When life first formed and everyone's like, oh, wow,
So how do you find bacteria fossils? Like,
So
that's mind-boggling.
micropaleontology is actually one of the largest and most utilized field of paleontology, actually.
Okay.
So you basically take like rocks and you break them down and look at their fossil compact. So one of the coolest things you could do, and you could do this at home, really, if you have a magnifying glass, a really good one, or you know somebody with a microscope, if you go out and get diatomaceous earth, if you look at the diatomaceous earth, you'll see it's full of plankton. The entirety of diatomaceous earth is all plankton, and that's what it's made out of. So one of the uses of paleontology in the modern day world is actually in forensics. We use paleontology a lot in forensics, looking at prehistoric microbes, because then we can go, this weird plankton over here can only be found in this rock over here. So we know that because this was in his shoe that he was over there at some time. But no, with dinosaurs, the fossil we were digging came from the Jurassic period, which is one of the most biodiverse eras of dinosaurs. It's like where all the famous dinosaurs, aside from T-Rex and Triceratops, came from. You know, one of my favorite lines is that Jurassic Park could have been Jurassic Park, but they named it Cretaceous. All the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park, the majority of them are Cretaceous dinosaurs.
Okay.
But the Jurassic dinosaurs are the ones that we kind of, around Colorado, we know very well, like Stegosaurus, Camosaurus, those kind of things that we see a lot of. When one of the best parts about dinosaurs, of course, and the reason that we love talking about them is because they relate so well to mythology. Because a lot of like what we have legends about, you go, oh, there's a weird skull that kind of matches that when you look at this creature.
Well, even something a little bit more recent, like you and I were talking about the mythology of the Cyclops and where that misconception probably originated.
So I can go a little bit into that. So the Cyclops, if you didn't know, the leading theory on why the legend of the Cyclops came to be is because when Greece was trading with Africa, they were trading ivory and many other things. And one of these things that they might have seen would be elephant skulls. Now, if you haven't ever seen an elephant skull, you'll find that they have these very large cavities in the center where their tusk or their trunk usually goes. Mm-hmm. And if you're unprepared for that, it looks like an eye socket, which, if you're an early person going, I've only seen human skulls, and wow, that thing looks kind of human shaped and kind of has a big hole. Man, that must have been where its one eye was,
Right. Man, that'd be pretty interesting. Would you imagine? Well, when it comes to elephants, I can't recall. Is it just the males that have the tusks, or do females also have tusks too?
The females also have tusks.
Yeah. Okay. So to see it, if it's like an adult skull, wouldn't it, I can't talk. Wouldn't it be feasible to say that the tusks are also attached? But then again, even back then, ivory would be of trade, right?
So part of that, and also a lot of the early representations of Cyclops would actually have them having tusks, believe it or not.
Okay.
But the tusks that you're seeing on a Cyclops, though, this is where it gets kind of wonky. The leading thought process is that the Cyclops comes from a different kind of elephant that went extinct during the early Greco-Roman period, which was known as the pygmy elephant, where they had little tiny ivory tusks that didn't grow that large.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the elephants that you see in Africa.
Yeah.
Those were elephants that were pretty rare in the desert area. You would see them, but at that time, it was kind of uncommon. While the pygmy elephants were roaming around in that northern African area. So it's kind of, there's a whole lot of theory. There's a whole theories on all these things and like how it could be and how it came to be, But,
yeah. That's pretty cool. We do have somebody, Chris just chimed in about, let's see what this is. Let me see what you guys make of this. What about the fear of cat eyes? I don't know what they're referring to.
I don't know if
Is
I got a couple of really fun stories with that. I don't
okay.
know. Oliver, you can go first.
Oh,
I don't know. I can ask
is it
them.
just yeah?
Let's see. Let me ask them. What are you referring to? Uh,
I have.
Can you?
There's a couple of like. There's a couple like things I can think of.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
one of the things that I oftentimes quote, a lot of the creatures that we turn into mythology are creatures that we have this emotional response to.
Right. Right.
And one of the leading theories for like how mythology creatures came to be is that from our past ancestors, so like the apes and all that kind of thing, whatever scared them is what scares us today.
Right.
So there, for example, like when you're looking at a dragon, and this is one of the many theories on how dragons came to be. Mm-hmm. Dragons are made up of parts of a cat and a serpent and, all the, and a snake. So a snake, all these things and flying eagles, things that were predators for us, Yeah. And because they were predators, we kind of were like, oh, wow, this is so scary. So whenever we went to bed, it was thinking you sleep and you go, oh, wow, I remember that time I once saw a snake. And then that molds with that story of that lion you once saw, that kind of stuff. And so as such, cat's eyes, like the fear of cat's eyes, could be, I don't know, I'm speaking from him, I don't know what his thought process is, but it could be like one of like how we are afraid. He actually responded.
Yeah, so traveling through Egypt, cats were everywhere. Traveling through Egypt, cats were everywhere. They were everywhere in India.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just the ever presence of cats, and probably maybe to your effect, Nolan. Just the mythologizing of that thing in the night that you do fear. But I think with cats too, there are also those creatures in horror that exist in both worlds, right? The world of the undead or the unholy or something, and then the living world. And there's so much that you can read into that. But I think Rose Snap was also talking about the reflective eyes. Alanna, is that something you can talk on? Like the physicality of the eyes.
So scientifically, what that comes from, it's called the tapetum. It's literally just like a reflective region in the back part of the eyes.
Oh, cool.
And every creature except humans and one more has a tapetal region. I don't remember what the other animal is. Nolan might be able to help me out with that.
See. I'm going through it.
Okay.
I don't think squirrels do.
Oh, squirrels.
Yeah, I think it's humans and squirrels are the only two creatures that don't have them.
What? Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's why, like, one of the scariest things about humans, and this is true in, like, humans don't have eye shine. So, yeah, Alanna, you can go a little bit into the tapetum and lucidum and eye shine if you want.
So the tapetum, when, like, your car headlights or a flashlight reflect off of an animal's eyes and you get that glowing eye back, that's because of the reflection off of the tapetal region. It like takes the light in and bounces it back, so that way the creatures can see better in the darkness. That's also one of the reasons why cats can see so well in the dark. And I also think cats' pupils dilate and constrict more than like a dog's would, and that also helps contribute to their nighttime vision. And so like when a cat's eyes are dilated, especially, you can really see a strong reflection from their tapetal region, and so you get those like really nice silver discs shining back at you.
Wow, that's really cool to think on that. Yeah, especially since in so many suspenseful scenes in movies or in books, it's like these eyes, just bouncing like back at you or looking right into you, like they're looking into your soul and stuff. It's such a um, almost a trope to a point. I mean, it's really kind of just a really nice device to set up the mood and the spookiness and the suspense. So yeah, it's that's awesome.
Another really like spooky thought about that is spiders even have it. So spiders' eyes will reflect too. So if you take a flashlight out at night and you shine it through like the leaves or through the trees or on the ground, a lot of the times you can see glitter and it's a spider.
So I've got something to add with that. I was just watching a PBS video last week on jumping spiders. So they've got 8 appendages plus 8 eyes, and I guess they're one of just a handful of spiders that have nearly 360-degree view. They have these big front loaded eyes that they're just as complex as ours.
So there's actually a reason for that with jumping spiders.
Right.
So one of the reasons that jumping spiders are probably the cutest spider on planet Earth because they have those giant forward-facing eyes.
Yep.
And you two might know this. This is the same reason carnivores have forward-facing eyes.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So you need those large eyes and complexity of the 2 eyes to create what's known as binocular vision.
Right.
And I can go into that, or somebody else can if they want.
I think the only understanding that I know of binocular vision is that's what allows us to get a sense of how close and far objects are.
Right. And then the surrounding eyes, they're both mostly motion detectors.
Correct.
So yeah, because at any given moment, it's so hard to sneak up on those little guys. Other spiders, you have no problem, but those ones in particular, they move to see where the motion's coming from, and then it's so fun to watch it move. As a kid, I got bit by one, and it was weird. It's not terrible. It just made my thumb punchline first, delivery last. Okay. Geez. But yeah, it was like numb for like 2 days. No big deal. But I don't recommend it.
Fair enough. I think we could.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, one other fun fact about jumping spiders, just for the fact that jumping spiders. If you didn't know, jumping spiders, due to the complexity of those 2 eyes, they're one of the few spiders that have facial recognition. So they can actually recognize people's faces. Yeah. This has been utilized by some people, notably some of my friends, to tame jumping spiders, where you could actually start feeding jumping spiders and they'll learn to recognize your face and assume it means food.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of my friends has like 20 jumping spiders that follow her around the house.
That's amazing. So would Spider-Man have reflective eyes?
Ooh, I think yes.
That's interesting.
I think that depends on, did the Venom actually change his vision at all? Because I don't remember him getting like better vision after he got bit. So therefore,
yes, that's why he has the eye covers, because his vision is like so much better that it's overwhelming, and that's why the mask like allows him to focus on it.
Okay. I also don't know comics very well, so I'll take that with the grain of salt.
That's all right. Yeah, after even in the 60s, after he got bit, he didn't need his glasses. Peter Parker kept his on, because he still needed to fit in as a nerd and allow himself to be kind of beaten up by the bullies, even though.
Yeah, probably would have reflective eyes.
Ooh,
That's so much more terrifying. Like, I think I've seen that in horror movies where you like see a human in the dark and their eyes reflect back. And I think
Right.
Spider-Man maybe shouldn't even wear his mask if he's trying to scare a villain, because that's so much more threatening to have that reflect back at you, because inherently you're looking at inhuman eyes. And that's way more terrifying than looking and just seeing the red eyes of a human.
So,
Yeah.
really quickly, I'd like to point out that humans do not have eye shine.
Right.
It is not a thing in humans. I've had this argument before. The red eye light you're seeing is actually a response of the shutter speed.
Oh,
So,
in the camera.
yeah, so what it is as light passes through, our retina will like pump blood in there just to be like a response to it. And that short burst of blood, while your pupil is contracting in response to the light, the shutter speed breaks through, bounces off the retina, and you get this weird red color. That is only available through cameras. If you try to shine a flashlight to find people, you will not see people. The red eye shine is only a camera thing.
That's awesome. After all, the eyes are the gateway to the soul. And as we know, since we do not have eye shine, we have no souls. Man, that's really cool. I love this conversation. So Chris chimed back in. So what would the most awesome animals human superhero would
human
what would
octopus.
be the most awesome animal human superhero?
A human octopus.
Everything's an octopus.
I mean,
right.
think about it. If you're a human octopus, that means you automatically can regenerate your limbs. You can change the texture of your skin. You can change the color of your skin. And I think you can even change the like relative size of your body. Like of course, you can't change your body mass, but like your volume, the volume of your body. So you can literally make yourself bigger or smaller. What else am I forgetting?
Let's see. We can go through the fact that you're venomous, that you can produce ink. You will have the ability. Your arms will have their own brains, and will be able to move without you.
Potentially extra limbs, so even doing more.
Yeah. You will have your suction cups are some of the strongest forces in nature, and on the end of each suction cup is a hook.
Right. Don't forget being able to exist in water and on land.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that.
Granted, on land for X amount of time, they still need to be wet, right?
As long as they're wet, an octopus can stay on land.
Okay, just for an indefinite amount of time, or
as long as they're getting moisture into their siphons, they can live on land. It is true for fish too. As long as their gills are wet, they can live on land.
Ooh, so you could have a little like water, collar.
Yeah.
What about the oxygen being absorbed into their system? Because that's through the skin for an octopus, right?
No, a little
is ink.
A little bit. Most of octopus actually have a circulatory system that has 3 hearts. So much like us, they actually breathe air in and pump it around their body. So one of the things that they can do actually with their siphon is they can pull water in and then blow it out their siphon to move really fast.
Right.
The whole thing about like gills, everyone goes like the most efficient breathing system. Everyone thinks that it's mammals and it's all that kind of thing. No, it's fish. Fish can absorb. If you put a fish on land, he would get pretty much every oxygen molecule in the area around him, just from being a fish, because their circulatory system is so advanced for being underwater that when they're in the middle of land, it's easy. They don't have to think about getting oxygen. It's just a passive thing. The problem is when the gills dry out, then they're screwed.
So going back to octopus respiration, does that mean that they breathe air? You said that they breathe air?
So they breathe, so much like a fish, They pull in water and they draw the oxygen out.
Okay.
Just like Oliver was kind of showing with his hands.
Sorry, I misheard something, and I thought I heard fish or octopus breathe air, and I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Okay. No, I think it's just similar to how we breathe air and they're just bringing water in.
Got you.
Okay.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. Well, this kind of spurred a lot of comments about octopus. Everything is an octopus. See,
Rose is definitely at our LeakyCon.
I'm telling you, you need shirts.
I really like that idea, actually.
So would it be good or evil? I guess the octopus superhero, maybe.
I think that would depend on the human side of that, because I don't really think there is good versus evil in the animal kingdom.
Sure.
Yeah, I think octopus is firmly chaotic neutral. So
yeah,
depending on the human.
That's an awesome term. Chaotic. I like that. That's really good. And then Rose is like, so not a superhero, but Cthulhu, perhaps? Oh, that would be a great one. What are your thoughts on Cthulhu? Has anybody brought that up?
Not yet.
Nope.
I've been waiting for the day that we brought that up.
The Dark Elder Gods.
Well, the whole thing about Cthulhu is that supposedly Cthulhu drives you mad upon the mere sight of him.
Right.
And we have done so many discussions on group psychosis as a group of what causes people to go insane.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of good ones. I know that we had reading pheromones was one, and reproducing pheromones.
That was discussed with the
one that we did. Huh?
All of those were discussed with the Thestral.
Yeah. And then we had what was the one we did for the ritual?
I think that was pheromones.
Was it pheromone? Yeah, it was either
so the ritual was the horror movie that brought me to the club, essentially.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they have this creature called the Son of Loki. And this creature has the ability to, it's basically just an amalgamation of a lot of different body parts.
Right.
But it has the ability to drive somebody
to see hallucinations, right?
Yeah, see hallucinations and that kind of thing. And one of the thoughts we had was using pheromones and smell, because technically you're seeing the hallucinations without looking at the creature. A lot of creatures in the animal world can create hallucinations by just color morphing or changing their body shape. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
For those who may not know, can somebody explain what Cthulhu is?
Nolan. Nolan's our Cthulhu expert.
So, H.P. Lovecraft, father of horror literature in the modern day, he created this book with pretty much every kind of horror creature you can imagine. It's really old. It's very old. It's an old book. And one of the things that he created was this idea of elder gods that came before the gods of man today. And one of these creatures was Cthulhu. Cthulhu is supposedly the creature that will bring on the apocalypse. It lives in extra-dimensional space that only accessible via our dreams. And it can read minds, cause mass hallucinations, and storms, and a lot of legends with it. For what it looks like a man with an octopus head. At least in H.P. Lovecraft's drawing of it. But according to H.P. Lovecraft, even the sight of Cthulhu is impossible. So technically that drawing is just what he imagines Cthulhu to look like, when in reality, if you looked at Cthulhu, you died.
Nice. That's my basic understanding. Of course, when I think of Cthulhu, I go to Hellboy, right? Or Lovecraft Country. I mean, those are the two interpretations that drew me in to H.P. Lovecraft and some of those offshoots. But yeah, that's the idea of like mass psychosis, like in nature. One thing that I think of is there's I think it's in South America and in the rainforest. It's a spore that when this fungus kind of gives way to these spores, and I don't know, you guys might know better than I would, but gives way, it lands on an insect, normally like an ant or something, completely hijacks its nervous system, and then the darn thing just goes up a tree, and then the spore just uses its body and grows, and the whole process just starts all over again. um, could something like that also exist with something like a Cthulhu? I mean, who's to say what? I mean, yeah, and this is me going out on a limb, but who's to say that an interdimensional being, would be based on our science? Maybe it's more fungus based, or more silicon based.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm reaching.
Sure.
You're not
I
reaching
mean,
at
I
all.
think what's really cool about I like the fungi idea because we as
This is
humans are
fun.
more
He's a fun
closely
guy.
related to fungi than fungi are to plants, which I just think is like wild. But there's a lot of evidence in like the scientific world of like symbiosis, which basically means like two different species getting along and like mutually benefiting each other, where like fungi are benefiting trees or other animals. So I kind of wonder now if Cthulhu just over time made friends with some kind of fungi that happens to have spores that make people go insane, and Cthulhu could just be some guy that is maybe benefiting a predator from being able to eat these people that then die. But he could absolutely just have spores coming off of him from some fungus that's making people go insane.
But wasn't it stated that Cthulhu only basically communicates through dreams?
Hmm.
That would fit into the spore thing as well.
Yeah.
I mean, people have been taking shrooms for a long period of time.
Right.
One of the things that I sorry, I know I'll just do a quick point on this. I am a big fan of the virus alterations of the brain and behaviors. So if you didn't know, one of the biggest diseases we talk about in veterinary medicine is rabies.
Right.
Do you know what the first name for rabies was? Hydrophobia.
Oh, interesting.
Because rabies virus causes your brain to become fearful of water.
Oh.
And you will avoid it.
Oh, shoot. So would you die of dehydration then?
Oh, rabies kills you far faster than
Okay, then
fear
that.
of water.
Okay.
Fear of water is like the first step.
Yeah.
So if you start having a fear of water, it's a good sign that you may have contracted rabies.
Oh, wow. Interesting. That's pretty wild. I do want to change gears just a little bit. I know we got some nice comments coming in too. Back referring to Cthulhu, Lovecraft, my mother from West by God, Virginia, told me a story about that when I was a kid, and the discovery of what they believe in the fifth dimension. And of course, referring to the rabies, did not know that. But changing gears, I do want to talk a little bit about kaiju monsters and the practicalities to that physiology, because now we've got kaijus being depicted, being just how big is like the Godzilla and the Legendary films, the American versions? They're like, is it like 400, 500, 600 feet? I mean, it's just massive and ungodly. And speaking of which, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Jolyon Yates. I used some of his kaiju anatomy art, on this Facebook page, and he's been doing kaiju art for probably, I'd say, about 20 years for some of the Toho films coming from Japan over here on Blu-rays and DVD art boxes. So he does some really cool stuff. But and seeing his work has always intrigued me as like, how the hell do these things even work? I don't know. Any like general thoughts on that? I'm sure that's an easy one to kind of chat about.
So, I know I talk a lot.
No, that's fine. It's a good way to get the spark going, right?
There's a lot of problems with the giant creatures.
Right.
Specifically, there is like an actual mass limit that your bones can handle. You can only build something so strongly and so robustly that can hold the weight above it. So Godzilla could exist in the ocean. No problem at all.
Okay.
He would be fine. The moment he comes onto land and experiences gravity and the sheer force pushing down on the limbs, it doesn't matter how wide his limbs are, the bone itself is going to break because the force is being pushed down. Sorry, that was my crazy animal that just jumped behind me.
That's your assistant.
Yeah. Actually, oh man, she would have been great. She's a Maine Coon, and I could have gone a little bit more into this using her limbs. One of the things, so basically, like, no matter how much you weigh, you can only put so much strength in those legs before they just smash to bits.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of my understanding is, and you guys talked about this, a little bit about pterosaurs and the limits of birds that weigh like 50 pounds and all that.
Yes.
So I'd imagine if there's such a minute limit on birds as is, and how pterosaurs actually the giant ones that fly, how the fuck do they fly, right? Oh, and by the way, we can swear on this. So yeah, just late forewarning.
Fair enough. I don't know who wants to jump in with pterosaurs, but
I know earlier we were talking about that, like, based on our calculations that we can do today,
Right.
birds can only fly if they're under 50 pounds. And so we just don't really know how the giant pterosaurs actually flew.
Okay. Right. Is so something like say Rodan, the size that it's depicted in the films, obviously probably pretty impractical. But when you think on like dinosaurs, which are probably the closest things to kaijus, those were land animals that got for our all all our references anyway, got to some pretty large sizes. Granted they're not 600 feet tall, but like what's the largest land animal that ever existed? Is it a dinosaur specifically?
yes.
Nolan, you had your hand up first.
So it's actually a huge debate.
Okay.
Anyone in the dinosaur community will go up in arms if I say my suggestion. We all decided that it's a sauropod dinosaur of some kind. What we haven't been able to figure out is who's right. Because we don't have full skeletons of dinosaurs. So we oftentimes have to estimate and guess how big a dinosaur would have been.
Yeah. And so, when you say sauropod, you're talking like Brachiosaurus, that, right? Okay.
Yep. So the current largest dinosaur is kind of a tie between either what's known as the Supersaurus or the Titanosaurus.
Okay.
There might be another one that I don't know about that somebody threw up there saying like this was the largest. It's an ongoing debate because again, we don't have the full picture.
Right.
One of the biggest discussions we have a lot with like our Jurassic Park talks and things like that is that as much as we know about dinosaurs, we have no idea how they digest food.
Oh, okay.
Because soft tissue doesn't fossilize.
Right.
So we don't know. Maybe its brain was, maybe it's like, there's a whole lot of theories. There was an old theory that Stegosaurus had a brain in its tail, you know?
What? That's interesting. I don't think it was an octopus.
No, it wasn't. But yeah, when you start going back in time, you start breaking. Things were built differently, and that's like the best way I can put it.
So then, what's the difference between the skeletal structures in a dinosaur that allowed them to grow so big that wouldn't allow like Godzilla to grow so big?
Well, there are many reasons. One is that dinosaur bones are mostly hollow. Makes a big difference.
Okay.
Two.
Also, I think we're talking on like different size scales. Like a Tyrannosaurus Rex stood about like 20 feet tall. Godzilla would have been like 20 times that big. So as big as the dinosaurs, there's still a huge difference in like a T-Rex versus Godzilla.
Yeah, and I guess even the like brachiosaurs and the other like long neck species and things like that, most of their size is length versus height.
Mm-hmm.
True. Okay. So, and with that, being length, being on all fours, you can hold a little bit more weight than if you're on two legs trying to fight. Like you and I are doing the same thing, just being on 2 feet trying to fight gravity.
Yeah.
I find every day it's a losing battle. Better to just sit down and let it everything just kind of flow over your back. But that's called laziness, and I accept that.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. So
the other part is when you start getting large, what do you eat?
True. Like, how much, right? To kind of sustain that, that weight, like. If it's like, Brachiosaur, Diplodocus, those really long, animals that are basically like, the equivalent of like today's elephants, they're just constantly having to eat just to maintain themselves.
Well, not for those guys.
Okay.
They break the rule. So they break the rule being ectothermic.
Oh,
if you're a cold-blooded creature, doesn't matter about eating because you're not trying to maintain your body heat.
Okay.
So that's a weird thing. If you didn't know, it's one of the many benefits of being an ectothermic creature. If you're a cold-blooded creature, yes, you are very limited in where you can live, but you can devote approximately. So most mammals can only absorb 10% of the energy of what they eat by the time they're done doing everything else they need to do.
Right. Okay. Right.
Reptiles, it's about 70%.
Ooh, wow. That's really efficient.
Yep. Which is why we should getting on my toolbox, but that's why we should swap over to eating insects. So that way we don't have to worry about it.
Well, and to that too, like you see a number of reptiles today living in the wild. Like tortoises living hundreds of years old, crocodiles. I was in Costa Rica a couple weeks ago with my girlfriend, and on one of these crocodile tours, we met up with a 75-year-old 20-foot crocodile, and got it was interesting. It's like a lot of these reptiles, specifically lizards, are creatures that are so efficient that they depending on their how long they live, they go to undeterminable sizes. So if you come across something that's like 100 years old, like imagine what like God, what would that be in a Komodo dragon species? It's like that would be just massive. Crocodile, 75 years old. lived a tough life, might have lost a limb or something, but still it's like 20 feet long. And Jesus.
There's a fun fact about exotics and the size. So say you have like a python species that is capable of growing up to like 10 feet or longer. Well, if you get it as a baby and only keep it in like a 30-gallon long tank that's only like 21 inches long, that python will only grow as big as its house, as its home can sustain it. And so it won't outgrow its enclosure. But if you take it out of its enclosure and then put it in a bigger enclosure, then it'll start growing again, even if it's 20 years old.
Wow.
That being said, that is not a veterinary recommendation.
No,
don't do that.
That is not a
recommendation. The size of a cage.
We do not need Colorado to be Florida.
No.
Yes.
Well, actually, I've met a lot of very large snakes in Colorado. But
okay, now I'm interested. In fact, I think we're almost out of time. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I've just let it go, but yeah, real quick, with reptiles, Nolan, I'm interested to hear what your snake encounter was.
So the largest snake I ever met, I actually came to our clinic, and she's 15 years old. I can't say names, of course. She's 15 years old and 27 feet long. Currently.
Oh my God.
What species was this?
Reticulated python.
Ooh, that's a big python.
Yeah.
That's anaconda size.
That is a huge python.
God, how did that even get to
Yeah.
Oh, that was the best part about it. Guy comes in with a toolbox, says he's got a snake, and I go, "Oh, cool." And this toolbox is like 5 layers of snake up with the head at the top.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Looks just portable. That would fit under the seat of a plane. That's alarming.
Hey, snakes on the plane.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we don't need to make up mythological creatures. We already live amongst them,
Yes, we do. That's for sure.
Yeah, but that, I think that's one of the fascinating things is the creatures that exist today are so fascinating just to learn about, whether it's something like the octopus and how elephant skulls might have influenced cyclops in the existence of dinosaurs. I mean, that's that still encapsulates everybody's imagination. I mean, look at the Jurassic Park franchise. They can turn out the same movie and people still goes to see it. But it's absolutely fascinating and wonderful to know that we live amongst all these modern marvels, and then to kind of imagine stuff that might exist or might not exist, and hear you guys hypothesize on how they could exist, if at all.
It's a lot of fun to discuss it and think about it too.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I've gotten lost in this conversation. I usually don't let things go on this long, but man, yeah, this is so much fun. I'm gonna have to have you guys come back, and
yes, for sure.
We'll do this again, because this is just too much fun. It gets my brain going. So yeah, it's really cool. Before we wrap up, anything closing that you want to add? Like, where can people go and follow you guys, or
So you can follow us on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember exactly our Instagram handle though.
CSU Marvelous Critters.
Thank you. I can't ever remember if CSU is before or after.
If you ever want to get in touch with us, the email is oh no. Why did I break it? Oh no.
Oh, I can pull it up. We're so prepared.
We're so prepared for this. The other part is that eventually we are working on creating a podcast, but
Cool.
it is we're getting
That's
there.
just hard.
It's 6 months in the making and it's still not ready yet.
Oh no! Come on, guys, just throw it up there. That's all you got to do. Do what I do.
Our email is csumcvm@gmail.com if anyone wants to get in contact with us.
Can you throw that in the chat, Daniel?
Yeah. So let's see here. Let me go. Come on.
And we will, but yeah, we try to learn as much as we can, and the world is full of amazing creatures, from exploding ants to frogs that break their bones to, I can't even go on the list because it goes forever.
Just another shout out. Our club does accept community members. It's a $10 membership fee, and you have access to our like movie nights. If we have guest speakers, you can join and view those guest speakers. And we do a lot of really cool stuff outside of this.
Nice. That's cool. Where do you have anything scheduled out for your next appearance? Like another panel or anything, another event?
I'll let our panel chair answer that.
We've been I don't know what the next date of our panel is. We'll probably be back at Denver Fan Expo next year in Fort Collins. We're looking at doing some traveling around, but that's sort of up in the air pending budget and travel expenses. We've looked at some other fan expos in places like New Orleans, but our Instagram will have updates on whenever our next appearances are. But hopefully at the very least, we'll see everyone at Denver Fan Expo next summer.
Yes.
Nice. Guys, thanks so much for coming on. Rose is saying, come to Colorado Springs Comic-Con. Please do.
Oh.
They need as much content as they can get. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I think that would be really, really fun. And then obviously there's always COFOH next fall. So
yes, we will definitely be applying for that.
Yeah, let's keep in contact. I'm the program director for that stuff. So you're already in contact with me, and I can't wait to do something like this. There. So guys, thanks so much for coming on. Hang out for a few minutes while we sign off. But Nolan, Alanna, Oliver, thanks so much for being so generous with your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks so much for having us. We were happy to be here. It gives us fantastic. A very nice excuse to not study as finals come up.
Yes.
Oh dear.
We have finals in 2 weeks, so it's rather stressful.
You guys got it in the bag. You'll knock it out of the park. Good. Yeah. Cool. All right. So for everybody that tuned in, thanks so much for tuning in. And of course, to our sponsors here, we got Mutiny Information Cafe. If you're going to start a revolution, make sure you're caffeinated. And of course, our friends at Hellfire Entertainment. Thanks for rebroadcasting us on your social media. And of course, Groovy TV and our friends at Alien Donut Films. Thanks to Bill and Angela over there. And our producers, Stefan Santa Cruz and Amanda Armstrong. And of course, to all you beautiful people out there, happy holidays. And make sure. We got more comments coming in. Thank you, Rose. Yeah, COFOH is a lot of fun. Yeah, I can't wait to see you out there. And Rose says it was great hanging out. So that's so cool that you guys got a lot of fans all of a sudden. That's awesome. I don't think all of a sudden. I think you guys have always had fans. It's a lovely topic. So of course. But again, to everybody that tuned in, thanks so much for tuning in. Be good, be kind, help each other out during tough times, and stay spooky, everybody. Have a good night, and we'll see you next week.